Hey, hey, hey everyone! How are we doing tonight? We're having to come live from my office tonight. You know the drill. I'm getting everything pulled up for JJ. How is everyone doing? I hope that you all had an awesome 4th of July. As you can see, why is this not working? Here we go. As you can see, I'm wearing some new merch. We have JJ the CPA and the Amanda shirts. We have shirts, but we have hats. How cute are these? They're trucker hats. We don't have a lot of them. I want to say that I have 10 or 15. So they are going to be first come, first serve. They are already live on the website at jjthecpa.com, and you're going to click merch and go down and get you one. Also, we have koozies, and we are limited on the colored ones. So those are going to be first come, first serve. If you do order a koozie and you want a colored one, then please put in, email me and say, I want a colored one, and I will get you one. If not, you're going to get a black one. But these are so awesome. I'm so excited that they came in today. I couldn't wait to share them with you guys. So yeah, now that I got that out of the way, already 52 people on. We really appreciate you guys coming on. We did have to move the time today because, it's tax season. And JJ is just going 100 miles an hour because there are not very many days left until July 15th. So he has been busy with that, so we had no choice but to move today's live until 7 p.m. So I'm so glad that you guys came on. We are going to have to limit this to an hour. So whenever the man gets in here, you guys are gonna have to get your questions going so that way he can get them answered, because he has a stack of work in there that he has got to get to tonight. But we still wanted to come on and see you guys too. So now that I have done all of that, I will say hello to some people that are in here. Let's see. Sadie. Well, Sadie, you're I've never seen you on here before, so we really appreciate you guys coming in here. Card Shop Reality, so happy to see you as always. With Flying Colors, oh no, With Flying Colors. I was just about to say some amazing news about this amazing woman, and I see this is so sad. So I'm gonna read it out loud so that way the people that didn't see it now. Say a prayer for my big brother. He had a severe stroke. He's in the ICU, but conscious, paralyzed on his entire right side from head to toe. He's in stable condition, but has a long road ahead. With Flying Colors, you know how much I love you. And big prayers from Joshua and I, or from JJ and I. And please keep us updated on his condition. And I'm so sorry, incredibly sorry. With Flying Colors actually called me yesterday, and I got to talk to her on the phone, and she sang me happy birthday, and it was absolutely amazing. One of the best birthday presents ever. So we are praying so hard for you, and I will make sure that we tell JJ so that way he's aware of what's going on as well. What's up, God Dozer? So good to see you. And Tony and Mary, thank you for coming on. Jolie Curtis, S. Phillips, Marissa, Rob, so happy to see you too. Hi, Fred. I'm so glad that you guys came on, and Jean McIntyre and Valerie. It's so awesome to see so many familiar names, and Glenda is on. So I have to show you we have to show you something, Glenda. Pay attention. I'm giving you time to look. It's the smallest t-shirt ever, because it's for our little Leah, and it's the only one that is red. So I cannot wait I'm gonna get this out in the mail tomorrow, And I can't wait for her to get it. So she has got a one-of-a-kind, truly one-of-a-kind t-shirt, and I hope that the size fits. I got her a 10-12, so that way she can wear it for a long time. But as you guys can see, JJ is here. I've already told him that you're keeping it to an hour because you have a lot of work to do. And we're keeping with Flying Colors' brother in our thoughts because he has had a stroke and is in ICU.
Oh gosh.
So.
Well, thank you for still coming on and letting us know so that we can be thinking of you and him and truly and sincerely praying for you and your family, and hopefully everything will come out a-okay with that. I know those that have a stroke, there's time that seems like a lot come all the way back, but
Absolutely.
A lot of times it's a long trek, so
And
keep us posted on that.
Yes, keep us updated and he will do so. So last call, if you want some merch, go to jjthecpa.com, click the merch tab. I've already given you the instructions. We have a limited quantity amount of hats and koozies, so go get you some, and I'm going to turn this over to JJ so we can get things wrapped up.
Well, thank you. And heard all the familiar names. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. It's been full out tax season. I've never worked on the 4th of July, which it's okay. I don't mind the work, and it was a hot day here, so I did take Sunday off. It was Amanda's birthday on Sunday, so of course I took that day off. We did get a little time at the pool, and we did get to see some fireworks Saturday night, so I hope everybody had a good 4th of July, stayed safe, and hopefully everybody's done with the tax deadline. If you are not, as in those that are the business owners, individuals, you can file an extension very easily for your individual return. It's a Form 4868. In fact, you can file it on the IRS website if you only prepare your return. And then for the businesses, those should have already been extended because they were due March 15th. Those are extended to September 15th already. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I'm a little disappointed, frustrated that the IRS as well as the AICPA, yes, Rob, for sure on that, that the AICPA and the IRS didn't kick that deadline down a little bit further, and for a couple of reasons, being that penalties start getting tacked on for whatever tax is not paid by July 15th for 2019, and then first and second quarter estimated tax payments are due July 15th as well. And technically, I mean, it's a calculation that is then done later on your 2020 tax return, but if taxes are not paid timely when otherwise required for first and second quarter 2020, well, there's underpayment penalties that come into play. And so, I don't know, from my perspective, and I'm not being sarcastic, but you know, we just extended, we as in the government, and Trump signed it the evening of July 4th, but we just extended PPP, which I'm glad. You now have until August 8th to be able to apply and get approved for the Paycheck Protection Program funds. So, you know, there's over $100 billion there, and this is the part I'm trying not to be sarcastic on, but, you know, we're making sure everybody can get the funds that they need for PPP. We got $100 billion sitting there. All that happens on July 15th is penalties start to click. So from my perspective, why are we not providing relief for those that have to pay? The only thing I can think, and I tell you what, it'll probably take me about a week to get over this if it does happen, but I really do hope that it does, which is this. I just have a hunch that the IRS will come out after July 15th and say, well, we're realizing that many were not able to pay their taxes, and so there won't be any penalties that will start to be tacked on to what you owe until after October 15th. And they have been known, and it's a positive for the taxpayers. It's a positive that they would do that, but they have been known to do it after the fact. In fact, last year, because of the withholding tables and without getting too much into detail, you were required to pay in at least 90% of the prior year tax. There's a lesser of, and without going through all the details, bottom line is they lowered that threshold down to 85%, then 80%. They did it after the fact, which was to everybody's benefit that they did that. So even though I'm saying they did it after the fact, they did it after the fact to help. So I think it'll be after the fact that they come in and do that. And the reason it'll take me a week to get over it is that the pressure that it's put on the small businesses that have been closed. And I know that there are some that feel like, well, I mean, the year closed, you should have all of your documentation. But for businesses that own other businesses, we see that there are individuals and businesses waiting on third parties that are waiting on third parties. And there's only so much work that can be done, and offices have been closed. And I'll go on, but I won't. Or I should say, I could go on, but I won't. Long story short, it just feels like it's punitive all around. And if they are going to provide relief in the penalties, which I think they will, that's going to be wonderful. However, they really did it at a price, and I think the price is, especially with the AICPA, of a number of tax professionals and EAs, but then with the AICPA CPAs, that we, as the ones that are preparing the returns, were really ignored and basically assumed that we can just make whatever it is that they say happen by July 15th. And so nonetheless, we are down to 9 days, and long story short, there's a lot that we need to get done. I know we need to get to the questions. I see that only from the corner of my eye, we do have a couple of questions, and I'm going to have you run through them real quick, but I just want to give quick shout outs to, looks like we had some, let me see, I guess, let me do the pop-out chat. And then I just need to select live. Okay. And all right, so just real quick while she's getting the questions ready, thank you all for joining us. We got Sadie and Joe in Card Shop Reality with Flying Colors. Many thoughts and prayers with you. God Dozer, good to see you. We've missed you, but that just means that you have been busy. Tony, how are you? And we've got Mary and Kathy. How are you? And let's see, Jolie Curtis and S. Phillips, how are you? Good to see you again. And Rob, we really appreciate you, Rob, and always being on. You are, as many, you are just always there, and really appreciate that. And Marissa, how are you? Great that you're able to make it. And we've got Fred, appreciate that. And Glenda, of course. And in case I didn't say, Mary. And we've got Valerie Clark, and let's see, RKIP72 and Jean McIntyre. Hope you are doing well. Everybody, C. Starnes, and we've got Karen, the CPA, on with us, and G and Duvall from New York. Great to see you. And Dax, let's see, we've got Dax and Kelly Thomas. How are you? Let's see, we've got Daniel Harris and Linda in 144 Michigan. What's up? And let's see, we got Amy Vo and Mario. Wow, we've got great turnout tonight. And we've got Amy. And let's see, oh, and we've got Tony on with us. Tony the Godfather, hope you're doing well. Tony sent me a really neat video that just talks about what it really means to be an American and to live in America. And anyway, someone had laid out some really neat thoughts, so I appreciate that, Tony. And we got Suzette and Carla, what's going on? And Stacy Fuller, yeah, thanks IRS, no doubt. And we got Patty B on with us, and Denise B. We got Kat and Timothy, and let's see, we've got, oh, and Annette Benson is on with us. Thank you so much. And let's see, Linda and Lothario, and Carol. What's going on, Carol? And let's see, and PB is here, as in PB and Jay that sent us this really neat card that I was talking about last week. Thank you to all of you that are on today. We've got some questions, Amanda, so if we will jump in.
All right, Sadie says, sole proprietor in process applying for PPP. Can I choose 8-week period still and use it for all owner comp replacement over 8 weeks? If not, can I use it for gas, mobile, personal care business? Cabbage told me I need additional proof of my business operating 220. Don't have a business lease, used to rent a room but gave it up due to COVID, hoping to not have to ask for landlady for anything else.
Yeah, so Sadie, what you want to do, and Cabbage just might be out of the loop still, I don't know. From the standpoint, these bigger companies, maybe it takes a while for the information to seep down to what they're asking of the lenders. But I can tell you without a doubt, the sole proprietors that got the money, you can elect the 24-week option. And the way that you would do that is on the SBA loan forgiveness application. When you list the covered period, and you would just be able to use the EZ, when you list the covered period, just list the date of disbursement as your start and then 24 weeks added on. And then that is indicating to the lender and the SBA that you are choosing the 24-week method. Then what you're able to do there is hand in your Schedule C, line 31, that is or has been filed with the IRS, because the IRS and the SBA talk, they'll line it up at some point. But you take that line 31 and you're gonna divide it by 12 and multiply it by 2.5. So even though you're doing the 24-week period, you don't divide anything by 24 weeks for the sole proprietor. You take your line 31 of your Schedule C, which is your net income, divided by 12 times 2.5, and yes, that is a familiar calculation because it's the same calculation that you use, as you all probably know, to actually obtain the PPP funds. So if you're in a set of circumstances where, and it should be this way, but the line 31 that you use to get PPP is actually what you filed with the IRS, and then what you're using for the forgiveness, then it's going to be fully forgiven. So I don't know of any sole proprietor out there that would want to do the 8-week option, a little bit for what you just indicated, trying to come up with the other expenses. So I think that this has been put into play very much to ensure that the self-employed are just getting that full forgiveness. So great question, and thanks for being right on and getting the first one in.
This is from C. Starnes. If the SBA decides that they are going to pay out the $10,000 grant, what will happen with PPP? Will it be deducted from our PPP loans and then we have to pay it back to the bank anyway?
Yeah, isn't that crazy? So the EIDG, which is that economic injury disaster grant. So these have been around for longer than the COVID disaster. So the EIDG and the EIDL have been around for other disasters that the SBA provides. So whether it's hurricane or tornado, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, those have been around for a while. So when you're looking at the rules and regulations related to this, there was confusion at the beginning because there's never been PPP. And if I really boil it down and bring it all the way full circle, because we know that we had to disclose it on applications that were used to get PPP, but it was only disclosing those SBA EIDGs that you got from January 31st to April 3rd, which is when this all got kicked off. But nonetheless, this is what's been made clear in the they keep saying final, but the interim final rules that the SBA's come out with. So the last set of the interim final rules that came out, as well as both SBA applications and then the guidelines and the instructions that go along with them really have boiled it down to this. You, on your forgiveness application, will determine how much of your loan is forgiven. Then it gets submitted to the SBA, and this is the part that I think is a little frustrating, but I understand why it's this case. But the SBA then will know that you got an EIDL, and even if you didn't disclose it, they're gonna know. But anyways, whatever your EIDL, or I'm sorry, your EIDG is, that grant, the up to $10,000, will be directly subtracted from whatever your forgiveness amount is. So back to the example that Sadie had, or the question she had, let's just say for grins that her PPP amount was $10,000, and she's been able to get it fully forgiven because her line 31 was the same as when she got the loan as when she got forgiveness. So $10,000. However, if Sadie got $1,000 for the EIDG, even though that application is going to say 10,000 is forgiven, loan forgiveness, hand that in the bank for that amount, then it's going to go to the SBA, and the SBA indicated that they will subtract out that $1,000. So in essence, you're only going to get $9,000 forgiven, and then yes, you would be paying that $1,000 back. And it seems unfair, but really, given that the EIDG had been around, it was there for helping people in circumstances and to help them right away. But then when they came out with the PPP, in essence, they're saying, it's the same thing, because EIDG can be used for payroll, rent, utilities. In fact, it can be used for any ongoing business expense. So great question on that. And I don't see it changing at all. I had, I think even Carol and I were both thinking that it would only be those that got the EIDG through April 3rd. And then when they came out here recently, it's clear that anybody that got the EIDG is going to have that offset.
Our next one is from Denise. SBA, after 129 days, had me online on portal approved for $42,000. Next was signed closing documents. Never got the EIDL grant, but sent loan amount. 2 days later, it was set to 0 and decline. Any idea why?
Well, that's frustrating. Yeah, the EIDL got declined. Yeah, so I've not been able to come up with any real rhyme or reason that the SBA is using to determine if you actually are going to get the EIDL. But what the SBA has made clear is that these are two independent decisions, meaning you can get the grant and not the loan. You could get the grant and then not the loan. Did I just say that opposite? Basically, you either get the grant or you don't, you either get the loan or you don't, but getting one doesn't allow you to get the other. So there are some that got the loan, but they didn't get the grant. It does seem that for self-employed individuals, even if they put down that they have one employee, meaning it seems logical that it would be them, quote unquote, that's the employee. What I'm understanding is that the sole proprietors are not getting the EIDG. They are potentially getting the loan amount. And then for those, there are some that they've gotten the grant, but then they're not getting the loan. And I do know that the SBA seems to be looking at also, and I'm just saying seems, I have not read anything that gives us any true guideline, but they seem to be more looking at, well, what other debt do you have outstanding? And that's the only rhyme or reason that I can come up with why they potentially are turning somebody down. So they can get an initial approval where you then confirm the amount that you want that they've initially approved. You then confirm your identity, and then it goes for approval, so to speak, or a final approval. And so I don't know if it's at that time that in essence an underwriter at SBA, for lack of a better word, is looking at it and then indicating, in their scoring system that this individual already has enough loans. Because I will tell you this, there's businesses that have gotten, $150,000 and, they're a company that's grossing $400,000. And then there's companies that are grossing, $1 million and they're getting $25,000. So I don't see any correlation to the revenue. And then same thing with the profitability, there seems to be no correlation, because you can have one company that is grossing a lot, which means they have less expenses potentially, if all things being equal. And so I can't really come up with anything. And then, I've got those that aren't able to get a loan at all, like weren't able to get a car, they're not able to get a car loan, they can't get a bank loan, they can't get a credit card, but then got approved for over $10,000, not on the EIDG, but on the EIDL. So my point in saying that is that it's not necessarily the credit. What I've concluded is that it may just come down to, how much credit does that person already have outstanding, and it may be related to their business, and maybe even doing a little bit of allocation of, okay, well, if they have all this debt and they're making this many monthly payments, is this something that's going to help or hurt this business? But I'm telling you right now, that's just based on my experience in talking with really clients, and then a few that I interact with that have talked about some of their details. So from my perspective, sorry you didn't get approved, especially for that dollar amount. I'm sure that you needed it. The only other thing I can say is for those that aren't getting the EIDL, potentially, you can call the SBA, you have a confirmation number, a login, and just inquire. Sometimes maybe there's something that they misunderstood. I know that you had to accept whatever it is they offered within 30 days, so who knows on that, but there's nothing wrong with giving them a call if they've already said no. And maybe you can talk with your banker or an SBA lender, because it's not the only way to get an SBA loan through the SBA. Many really, if they're not in the circumstance of disaster, you're getting an SBA loan through the bank with an SBA authorized lender.
This is from Valerie, sole proprietor, Schedule C question. If I take SF for home office, then cannot use any other expenses, correct?
Well, hey Valerie, how are you? So if you're a sole proprietor, then you don't even need to worry about this for PPP, but does it sound like it's for tax? Does it sound like it's a tax? Did she mention PPP at all in the question? Okay, so maybe you're just asking a tax question, which I love. So if you're taking a home office and you're doing the square feet, then you just take the square feet that you're using for business. Okay, great, so tax question. So you take, yes, the square feet times the $5, and that's your safe harbor. But then here's what, in essence, it encompasses, just in case. So it would be your home mortgage, home real estate taxes, the home utilities, as well as maintenance. So yeah, anything that you're paying at the house, if you will. But I do want to make sure that if you do have a second line at the house, you can deduct all of that. Many might have a fax line or a separate phone line at the house. That might be a little old-fashioned, but I had that for a while. So anyways, a second line. In my opinion, okay, and I'm sure there might be some that disagree, I don't feel like that necessarily includes your internet. So I think that your internet can be deducted. I know that some could argue that's part of the utilities, but I think you could take a portion of your internet, and what I would look at is, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but with cell phones, they come down to, what's the usage for personal and business. So you might be able to still deduct a portion of your internet cost at the house. I know for sure you can't deduct your first line on the phone because that goes with that. I don't really feel like you can deduct cable. That seems to be part of it, part of utilities. And then make sure too, though, if you're officing out of the house, sometimes businesses will get or home office. Those that are officing at home, they might get some kind of extra insurance if they have customers coming over. So if you have a separate rider, that's rare, but if you have a separate rider on your on your house, you'd be able to write that off. So here's really the theme is if it's a personal expense that's for the house and without any winking, then yeah, that's all encompassing to the home office. But just be sure that my thought process is this: if it's an expense that you would be incurring only because you're officing at home, and I know that some could come up with goofy analogies to come up to deduct anything, but Valerie, I know you've asked questions before, so I know you're not trying to do that. But my point is that if you're expending something that you really wouldn't spend unless you were officing at home, then I think that's not part of the home office deduction, meaning you would get it in addition to that. Kind of like, a cell phone. You should be deducting your cell phone because that doesn't have anything to do with your house.
S. Phillips, any chance of applying for more PPP with the continuation of government mandated shutdowns?
Yeah, I was really taken aback because it seemed like the senators were really on a roll that, you bet, Valerie, were really on a roll that they were going to extend this, but then only extend it for those that were small employers and allow those that, needed more that could get it. And they talked about doing kind of a comparison of your income to prior periods. So I know in Oklahoma, we have a grant that's being given out, and what you're doing is comparing your gross receipts March of 2019 through March 2020 through May of 2020, so those 3 months, and then you're comparing it to 3 other prior periods to see if your gross receipts went down by at least 25%, and if they did, then you qualified for the grant. There were a couple other provisions. Nonetheless, I was thinking that it would be similar to that. And from my perspective, I think that there's going to probably be something that comes out because I keep hearing it's actually $130 billion that has still not been given out. And I guess I don't know if the government kind of looks at it as, well, we already were planning to give it out. So if PPP is not fulfilled or taken fully advantage of, I don't know if they then shift it to something else. So I think Carol had a question about EIDL. So let's make sure we're grabbing that one. Or Glenda about returning EIDL to the bank or something like that. I just see it popping up here.
All right, I'll try to get to it. I'm
Yeah.
just going down the list.
Oh, I know.
This is from Timothy. I applied for the EIDL loan and received $20,000 for my business. I haven't used any and trying not to. In your opinion, what are the chances of any of this will be forgivable outside the $1,000 grant?
You say it was an EIDL?
I applied for the EIDL loan
Yeah.
and received $20,000 for my business. I haven't used any and trying not to. In your opinion, what are the chances of this will be forgivable outside the $1,000 grant?
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to verify. So on the EIDL, you'll have to pay that back regardless. I think you're smart in leaving it in reserve, saving it. I know that we've had some that have maybe not taken the full amount and regretted it because they're like, gosh, I should have just had it sitting in reserve. So at the end of the day, nothing wrong with just holding on to it. It's meant for overhead and operating expenses. It's not meant for doing a refinance on loans or paying back the owner or buying assets or doing major repairs that would really be considered creating an asset. but you're not going to get any of that forgiven. Now, you can pay it back at any time. There's no prepayment penalties. And the EIDL, you probably know, it's over 30 years, 3.75. You don't make payments for 12 months. And so from that perspective, if you were thinking it was going to be forgiven, it's not. And then if you got the EIDG, it has no effect on the EIDL. The uses for both are the same. It's only the EIDG that will affect the PPP, which is a direct reduction of the forgiveness.
Carol's
Thanks for that.
Carol's question is, how do you give back an EIDL loan?
You know, I haven't seen anything on that yet. And, you know, the EIDL is directly with the SBA. And someone had asked, but it was probably a couple of weeks ago. And so, Carol, when I was looking, I didn't find any way to do it. I didn't find an address, you know, that you can mail the check. The only thing I can think of is I know that I've had a couple of clients that have had really good luck getting a hold of somebody at the SBA. So maybe we need to have someone do that. And then I'd be curious if you can let me know what you came up with. And I think that Rob was telling me, or in an email, Rob was telling me that it seemed as though the interest starts to accrue pretty much right away. I thought the interest didn't start to accrue until after 12 months, but I think Rob is, whatever information he came across, and then he was looking at a calculation. So nonetheless, if you are gonna return it, then obviously someone wants to do that sooner rather than later, and then document the heck out of it, since it's so much going on right now. So yeah, let me know what you find out on that, Carol, because I've not been able to come up with anything, not even looking on the website. The SBA website has a lot of information, but I've not been able to consistently find information. So it could be that it's on there, but it's a little bit of a maze.
This is from Stephen P. Can we give the EIDL grant back, independent of the EIDL loan itself, when it is adjusted from the PPP forgiveness? If we don't use the grant, there would be no reduction of expenses come tax time.
Yeah, you know, on the grant, probably the same thing. I mean, the short answer is I believe you could always return it. I think that if you got the PPP, in essence, you are going to do that at forgiveness time. And really what it comes down to is if you got, you know, 10,000 on PPP, you got 1,000 on the grant. In essence, if you use the grant and you use 9,000 of the PPP, so you use 10, then you have that 1,000 that come PPP forgiveness time, you'd have the $1,000 that you would be able to just then pay back. So I think that that might be the least confusing way for the government, would be to, in essence, reduce down the forgiveness. And the reason I say that is that the SBA obviously has been inundated. It's probably going to take a while potentially for this all to catch up with itself. And what you very well may find is that if you did return the EIDG and then you put in PPP forgiveness, they may come back, they being the SBA, to say, hey, you put in application, you're saying that you had 10,000 of loan forgiveness. Well, we're going to subtract out the EIDL that you got. And then for you to be able to prove that you gave back the grant and how, all I'm saying is that's kind of putting a, what do they call, a square peg in a round hole. So I feel like if you got the grant and you got PPP, then just follow through with put in the loan forgiveness application, spend 9 of the PPP or 1,000 of the grant, or kind of all 6 and 1/2 dozen of the other. Just have it ready to pay back. So thanks for that question.
Linda, S Corp, will I need to track our employee simple IRA for PPP forgiveness?
Yeah, you know, the thing is though that, you know, with the 24-week option now for employers, those that have the employees, you know, you're able to include 24 weeks. So I've had a couple of clients that, they're anxious to want to go ahead and put in their application. And I've just been advising, well, let's just wait a couple extra weeks, from my perspective, in the event that later there's a haircut somehow in the calculations, or somehow an expense that they thought was going to count doesn't. I kind of look at it like this. It's like, why wouldn't I want to have more than enough when I go to do the loan forgiveness? With that being said, I don't think you're required at all to include any of those expenses. Whatever expense you are including, as we understand it now, you're not going to be able to write that off. And so part of what I've done a video on, and it's getting way out there in terms of some major tax planning. It's big picture thinking. But if you include rent and utilities, right, and interest, and if you could include as much of that as you can, then it would be rent and utilities and interest that you wouldn't be able to write off, but you'd be able to write off all of your wages and the health insurance and the retirement benefits, or at least there would be less of that. And therefore, why does this matter? For a very small group of business owners, when you're going to do the qualified business income deduction, QBI deduction, you take into account wages. Well, if the wages haven't been a deduction for you, potentially you are in a situation where the wages would then be reduced and then hurt you, in essence, if you needed those wages to help preserve your QBI deduction. So all that QBI talk aside, no, you don't have to include, if you have plenty of just regular old wages, as well as some rent and utilities. So I think at the end of the day, that 24-week option is for us to just be able to make this simpler and easier. And when you're looking at the EZ, I mean, you're just taking your payroll costs, which, if you ask me, this is the other thing I've told clients, why not just be able to just go, hey, here's my 941, here's just the gross pay, versus trying to figure out all the other little intricacies. So like just picking the most obvious, most easy ones to substantiate, and then be able to just hand that documentation into the bank. So then the bank's not having to do a lot of recalculating. And so I'd probably be a fan of not worrying to include the retirement benefits, because that can kind of get a little more confusing about vesting, or is it 3%? And, is the match the same as what they put in? There's a lot of ambiguity that can go into that. So once upon a time, you'd want to include that because you're trying to make sure you could get to everything within 8 weeks. But I think with the 24-week option, you might be okay excluding it.
And Barbara says, checklist on loan forgiveness application. I initial to paying an employee as I claimed myself as a sole proprietor. Knowing now I should say no employee, do I need to initial that to keep it the same?
Let's see, initial that. Let's see, what's the next question? I'm gonna pull up did she say the EZ?
She did not. She just said loan forgiveness app.
Okay, probably the EZ. So I tell you what, I've already here. Let me pull up the EZ app and see exactly. Yeah, and you know what? You're not alone on that. I think I even, at the time, because we had no idea, I said, yeah, put yourself down as the employee. So let's see, number of employees. So on the EZ, employees at the time of application, employees at the time of forgiveness. This is how, I'll tell you this is how I would recommend, is I would put a 0 and a 0. And then I would just include a letter or a note that just indicates that on my original application at the time, there was no guidance. And so in an abundance of caution, I indicated myself as an employee. I now know that I'm not an employee. So I think what you would want to put on this forgiveness application is the reality. And the reality is you didn't have an employee. just the same as the reality is you don't have an employee at the time of forgiveness. And I think the reason that's important is that this will be the main document that the SBA is going to look at. And if they see one employee and then zero, they might even just go, well, wait a second, I don't think you can file an EZ. So I think that you put both of those things down as zeros. Hopefully that answered your question. Thank you for it.
Alfredo, hello.
What's up?
Sole proprietor here. I got funded about 3 times the amount of my line 31 divided by 12 times 2.5. Don't really know why, but I got 10,000 instead of 3.5 thousand. Can I get forgiven more than the 3.5 thousand?
Yeah, so the answer is you won't be able to. And what's really interesting here is that when you read the latest SBA guidelines that came out, they address the fact, like very specifically, you bet, Linda, if you very specifically got more than what you qualified for, it just indicates that you're going to have to pay it back. So I do know that you could, as a Schedule C filer, go, well, hey, I'm going to do the 8-week, and then I'm going to include rent and utilities and try and maybe get a higher figure. But the thing to note is that it's going to be a line 31 for you, even if you do the 8 weeks and put other expenses on there. I think that really what it comes down to is your best bet is to go with line 31 divided by 12 times 2.5. It's going to give you the biggest amount. And then I think really honestly, you should be prepared to either defend to the bank why you ended up with such a large amount. I don't want to scare you or anything, but I think you should put in your loan forgiveness application as soon as possible, which is now. If you're a sole proprietor, you can easily do the EZ. I think that you want to put down, here's my line 31 Schedule C of what I filed, go through the calculation, hand it in so that you can get payments going sooner rather than later. But here's my point. Over the weekend, I was just reading several circumstances where someone got grossly more than what they should have, is that became an investigatable set of circumstances. Now, the ones I read about it, seemed clear they were doing things incorrectly, but they are catching up with people that have put in multiple applications. And I don't mean you're going to jail and fraud, but guess what? On this, you're better to get an application in and put a letter of explanation in that, if you were my client, that just says, when I got the PPP, we were all basing it what we knew at the time. I thought that the amount that I applied for was appropriate and correct. End of story. And then here's my loan forgiveness. And then they're going to come back and they need to pay it. So that's part of what I'm saying is, so if you start any shenanigans, not saying you will, that's where I think you're going to get someone riled up and upset, probably at the SBA, as in basically saying, hey, you took too much and now you're trying to get more forgiven than you really should. So end of the day, I think this is one of those that if you're providing your information first with explanation, that's going to be a way to ensure that someone doesn't come back and nip you in the bud. And it sounds like what the SBA was saying is the way you'll get nipped is just none of it's forgiven, none of it. And they do seem to be taking it pretty serious, as I talked about from the beginning, that this was grandpa's money and you got $20. And if you just, ran to the movie theater because grandpa said, hey, here's $20, go enjoy yourself at the theater. But if on the way you bought some socks and then you tried to get somebody else to give you a receipt that went to the movie and you didn't, grandpa's going to find out. And or you went to a matinee, but you insisted that you pay full price, and then you only needed a bag of M&Ms, but you bought 3, and then when you get back home and grandpa asks for the change, and he sees that you got M&Ms falling out of your pocket, I don't know that grandpa's gonna be very happy about that. So that's how I looked at PPP money from the beginning.
You have 10 minutes
Okay.
left, so do you want to say goodbyes or?
Nope, let's go with the questions.
Rob says, my PPP covered my employees, but I didn't include my Schedule C for my own pay. Can I reapply round 2 for myself?
You know, there is a way that you can apply for more if you are a partnership, as I understand it from the SBA. And it's the guidelines that came out on May 22nd, I believe, that are on my website, jjthecpahelp.com. But that, in my impression, was just for partnerships, and that was for those that didn't apply at the partnership level, thinking they should apply at the individual level. And the SBA said, hey, instead of a bunch of partners applying individually, we just want the partnership to get the PPP. And therefore, it seemed as though that option was really just for them. So with that being said, if you are a sole proprietor and you got the PPP and you put down your sole proprietor and you have employees, I don't know that you can get any more, but see, I don't want to be the one that says you can't. So what I would do is whatever lending institution you went to, I would return to them and just tell them, hey, when I got it, I only got this. Am I able to amend my application? Or, but I don't think you should put in a new one. I think it would only be amending it. And if you're going to do that, I would probably get on it quick. Not to say that the money's going to run out, but it might take the bank a little bit to get you an answer. And my understanding is for the PPP, you have to get it approved by August 8th, not just hand in your application by then.
Blue Line Tax and Accounting
Hey,
Services.
Blue Line.
Would you advise that clients not pay first and second quarter estimated payments that are due July 15th and lump the payments into third and fourth quarter estimated payments?
Well, great question, and I'm going to do a video on that. The short answer is that I think for clients that maybe really didn't get a hit, so I've been talking with a number of clients just like you last week and this week. So today, 2 different clients. One, as we were talking, you know, they didn't really miss a beat in the sense that, yes, they were closed for a while. They didn't get PPP, but they were able to really stay afloat pretty easily because of the way they make money, that while they were closed, there was money coming in from what they had done before COVID. And then they were able to ramp back up so quickly, and what they're providing, they were able to get back that revenue so quickly because it wasn't that it was lost, it was now just, for lack of a better word, deferred. This work was still there to make it up. So with that being said, we were like, probably need to go ahead and pay your quarterly estimates. And from the standpoint of the other client that I talked with, you know, they did shut down. They did have a hit. And when I was talking with them, it's like, well, you know, what do we think the rest of the summer is going to look like as we're starting to go down? What's the fall going to look like? And so I do have clients that when we do kind of a quick estimate for 2020 and we go, well, how do you know you're going to recover? Or if I say, well, what'd you do the first 6 months? Let's assume you do the same for the next 6 months. I have a number of clients that's like, well, I don't know that you're really required to pay in anything. And Blue Line, you know about Form 2210, and I've always been, I use that 2210 all the time, especially with my clients that are attorneys, where their income is like this. And so the clients that we're deciding not to pay in the first or second quarter, or at least not the full amount. But I'm going to tell you this, if it was just me and you, I don't think we're going to go wrong with just kicking it down to September 30. And I'm saying that one professional to another because you're going to know what clients that's okay to do with. But I know that where I can with clients, I'm just kicking it to September 15th, where I feel very comfortable we're not going to be in a penalty situation. All right, why don't we do, if we can, I'll do them as fast as we can. But how many more do we got?
More than you can answer in 5 minutes.
Okay, well, just go to the next one.
Joseph, can the EIDL be used to pay tax obligations? I'm an independent contractor.
The EIDL cannot be used to pay, in my opinion, any of your individual income tax. It's not considered an operating expense. If for some reason you had, tax to retag your car that's for business, or if you're sole proprietor and you own something that it had business personal property tax, but not on the individual income tax.
Renee, are you allowed to use the loan to start another company with the portion that is your paycheck?
Yes, if it's your portion, it's your money, then yes, you would be able to use it for whatever it is that you want.
Brandon, where do we go to pay back or pay the EIDL loan when ready to do so?
Yeah, I don't know yet, but I feel confident that the SBA will be in touch with us that got the EIDL. You can log into your portal to keep an eye on it, so I keep your, login info ready to go, and I don't know of a way that you can start paying in advance. So the only thing I can say is maybe you'd be able to contact the SBA and see, but I don't know of a way right now.
Ruthie, I have a daycare in my house and using 50% for my business. Can I deduct all utilities for tax?
No, I would think that in your set of circumstances that you would be able to deduct half.
Mary, my EIDL loan was at 3.5% when I applied. Will my percent increase to 3.75?
Oh, wow. No, you probably got in it during a period of time, but if that's what the SBA gave you, then that's what it will be.
Brandon, who do you think is likely to be audited over the PPP EIDL loans? Small loans, bigger loans, or?
Yeah, I think the ones that'll be audited we already know there's the 2 million mark, but I think on the PPP, it's gonna be those that the Schedule C that they filed, okay, so sole proprietors, just didn't match up to anything. I've had a few people either online, and it's like, oh, well, just give them a Schedule C. And it's like, nah, SBA is gonna match that up with the IRS. So I think those that those aren't matching up, there's gonna be an inquiry. And then I think for those that have employees or got the PPP based on employees, if there is a massive difference in the amount of employment that's reported for 2020, could lead to an inquiry. Or for those that they indicated that they had the employees, they got the money, but then it's just going to turn out that they don't. So I think there's going to be an inquiry. I don't know that there'll really be an audit on those that are self-employed because there's going to be just an automatic calculation for forgiveness. So unless their Schedule C does not match up. And then I think for those that maybe got above the 150,000 are subject to some kind of review. But with IRS, it's less than a 1% chance that you get audited, so it doesn't mean you just do whatever you want. But I do feel like if you have the documentation, and that's what I've always told my clients with the IRS, then let them come and ask. And but I think just as a curiosity, I think that there'll be, for every one EIDL inquiry, or let me say, I'm sorry, the other way. For every 10 PPP inquiries, I bet there's one EIDL inquiry, meaning I think there'll be way less inquiries on the EIDL because you just have to pay it back. So I think on the PPP, the fact that you don't have to pay it back based on loan forgiveness is why they'd be more interested in looking at it.
Carlos, if I were to do a 1031 exchange, how long do I have to wait until I can move into the house on a permanent basis without getting hit on the capital gains tax I deferred by doing the 1031 exchange?
Well, if you live in the home and it's your personal residence, You don't have to worry about that anymore as long as your gain is less than 500,000 married filing jointly. The gain, that is, remember, the gain, not the sales price. So sales price minus cost basis if it's a single individual, if the gain's less than 250,000. Now, if you're talking about a business property and you're now going into it, it doesn't sound like you are, but on a business property, it's 45 days to identify the property that you're going to 1031, and then you have 180 days to close on it. But there's no requirement, even on a business property, that someone has to move into it. It's just from the date of sale to the date of purchase is 180 days. And the thing to note is that there are reverse 1031s where you might buy the property before you sell the other one, and then it's 180 days the other way. But as it relates to personal, there used to be that, but it hasn't been around in a while. We're gonna go into overtime. I think what we'll do is, if it's okay, I'm gonna let Amanda say the goodbyes, so I can just answer some more questions, if that's okay with everybody. Appreciate everybody being on. Let's see, we got 174. I'm usually not the one asking, but hey, if we could get some more thumbs up, if you're tuning in, get a little bit of value, a great way to help us is to smash the thumbs up. We really appreciate that.
Marissa, S-Corp retired benefits. I took my 2019 employer profit sharing and I paid 2 months. I got a letter from actuary. How do I submit this for forgiveness? Also, how to submit for owner's max salary, $20,833.
Yeah. So when you go to apply for, great question. When you go to apply for forgiveness, that's awesome that you have that letter. And then basically, you're just like you said, you've got the 2 months, you're doing the calculation. So I think probably a worksheet on top of that. And then on the owner's comp, it does have to actually get paid out, the owner employee. And then I really feel like with that, it's at least what, because I'm an owner employee. So what I'm just going to be providing is my, we use a payroll company, but just the payroll records to indicate. And the company that we're working with, they're going to be able to just give us reports that are just for that period of time. So know this for everybody, you can gather up more documents and more dollars than you need. And what I mean by that is that, let's say for the owner employee, that for whatever reason, in the 24 weeks, whether it's an increase in pay or whatever the case is, that owner's been paid, $25,000. Well, you can hand in all of that compensation. It's just that on that line item, you're going to put the $20,833, and then same thing for the employees. You can put in as much payroll cost as you want, and you can even load that up on the PPP forgiveness application. And the thing to note is that when you go down and you're doing the calculation, of course, it's the lesser of 3 line items on your forgiveness application. One being, the payroll cost minus any haircuts, and then the payroll cost divided by 0.6, not times, but divided by, and then the loan amount. And so this is why I'm telling clients, let's just wait a little longer. Let's have more than we need. So just know this, when you're gathering up your documentation, don't worry about I only can provide documentation up to the $20,833. Include more, only $20,833 would be included. And then of course, the other limitation on the owner's employees is that what were they paid in the prior year divided by 12 times 2.5. Obviously that's where that number comes from. But I have had some that are like, well, hey, last year I only paid myself $60,000. So can I pay myself annualized $100,000 this year? Well, the short answer is yes, but the amount that's going to be included in your loan forgiveness app will be limited to last year's owner employee divided by 12 times 2.5. And I'll say real quick, since we had an S-Corp question, right? There's S-Corp. On the S-Corp, there's I understand every article I've read, and I usually don't respond to authors, but there's been a few that I said, hey, maybe expand what you're saying here, because it's not true that S Corp owners don't get to include their health insurance, because they do. In the SBA guidelines, it's made super clear that you don't get to include the amount of the health insurance premiums that the S Corp paid because, and it literally says this in the SBA guidelines, because the wages of an S Corp owner is to include the health insurance premiums. Now, I do get that if you have an S Corp owner and their salary is $125,000 and then health insurance is added to that in box one, yeah, I get it. In that set of circumstances, the health insurance is not able to be deducted. But with C Corp owners, you're able to include the match for the retirement as well as the health insurance. For sole proprietors and for partners, you're not able to include retirement or the health insurance. Is Blair on? No? Oh, I thought I saw something in it with an organ.
Rob says, what is the anticipated video schedule for the rest of the week? Reality show Thursday at 9 p.m., Friday party at 4 p.m.
Hey, I appreciate that. I tell you what, we got through the whole day, and I told Amanda probably around 5:30, I was like, oh my gosh, we didn't even do a video today. So we're gonna try and put out one video a day. And so stay tuned, buckle up. I appreciate that, Rob. And we had thought about once upon a time maybe having a specific time that videos are released. But for now, it'll be as we can get them out. But I appreciate the question, because Rob's probably wanting everybody to know, well, when are we gonna release some videos? So I feel like we'll probably shoot one tonight that we'll release tomorrow.
Marissa, do I need to break out employer contribution for employees and owners, or is it okay to show a lump sum?
You do need to separate it out, because they're going to go on separate line items on the PPP forgiveness application. Now, if you're using the EZ, you can just lump it all into payroll costs, but you still would need to limit the amount. But if you're doing the full out PPP forgiveness application, then you have those on separate line items, and that would be where you'd have to break it out.
Prestige Lawn Care, I was approved for an EIDL loan. I was given 30 days to sign. Should I wait to see if I get the full 10,000 EIDL grant instead of the 1,000 they're sending out, or will they back pay 9,000?
They're not going to back pay a thing. I wouldn't make a decision based on that at all. They're very separate decisions that the EIDL and the EIDG is based on. If you're a sole proprietor, you should count on not getting it. If you've gotten the EIDL, know this, that there's only so much in funds that they have available. And I'm assuming if they've offered it to you, the only thing I would say is that you can pay it back at any time. There's no prepayment penalties. Maybe you get where there's a little bit of interest on it. But I would challenge you on this. With all due respect, but for anybody that's listening, if you aren't feeling like you should take the money, then you probably shouldn't. Then you probably don't need it, so don't borrow it. Because the EIDL, I think, is really meant for, not saying you don't deserve it, but I think that the purpose of the EIDL is that somebody's house is on fire and someone's bringing a hose over, and they're gonna immediately take it and start putting out the fire. So for you that's looking to get the EIDL, if you're kind of like, well, I don't know if I need all of it, then I would say, why get that debt? Why go into debt? Because it doesn't sound like maybe your house is in a blazing, 3-alarm fire, so to speak. And so my only thing in saying that is, it's debt. You're taking on debt. And if you're wanting to determine how much you're going to get on the EIDG, I'll tell you this right now, if you don't have it already, you ain't gonna probably get it. I can't guarantee that, but I'm just telling you that most people that get the EIDL, once it gets approved and they're saying, hey, here's your papers, the EIDG, it sounds like 98% of the time comes right then. So if you don't have the EIDG now, or you don't have it in a few days, I don't think you're gonna get it. So I wouldn't wait for it, and you certainly aren't gonna get any back amount if they only gave you 1,000.
All right, our last question is from Carol. Do you need to disclose the EIDL loan when applying for PPP?
Oh, when you're applying for the PPP, let's look real quick. Great question on that, and where I'm going. And there's no traps here. There's no booby traps, as I've said. I guess that's an old-fashioned term, but if you go to jjthecpahelp.com, you don't tell me who you are. You don't enter in an email. Oh, Blair is on.
Oh.
What's up, Blair? Blair from Oregon.
Blair from Oregon.
Let's see. So on the PPP, I'm looking at the June 12th one. And I know why you're asking this, because we do have to disclose it, but it used to be that you were only disclosing it if you got it between January 31st and April 3rd. And so I'm looking here at the instructions right quick, and I'm not seeing anything on the new one that's just popping out at me. Let's see. So I do see that it is disclosed at the PPP borrower application that's June 12th. It does say times 2.5 plus the EIDL, but I don't know that I'm seeing anywhere. Oh, no. You know what, Carol? The way I'm looking at it is question 4 says, has the applicant received an SBA economic injury disaster loan between the 31st and April 3rd? If yes, provide details on a separate sheet, which we all know that the EIDL and the EIDG are separate, but I think they're talking about the EIDG. So I think the answer is yes. Good. You know what? I'm going to dig on that a little bit, because that'd probably make a good video for those that haven't gotten the PPP. What do you disclose now, since you're not? Now, I will say this. If you didn't get it between January 31st and April 3rd, it doesn't seem that you would include it. We don't have any more?
And well, Carol says, what if you got it by mistake, thinking it was PPP and you're trying to return it?
Oh, well, on the forgiveness application, I think you just include it. And then you're gonna, if that's what we're talking about. But I do feel like what's gonna happen is, the way you'll return it is, you're not gonna have your loan fully forgiven, and then that's how it gets returned. So I feel like on the grant, if you got the grant inadvertently somehow, or you don't want it and you got PPP, I think you're mucking it up. Now, this is just my personal opinion. Now, the SBA may come out and say, oh, well, here's how you do it. But I think you got the grant, you put in your PPP forgiveness application, you do disclose it, the SBA is going to come back and say, you're right, here's your loan forgiveness, we're reducing it by the SBA. She says, no, grant loan. So I don't know, Carol, on that. I guess I'm maybe just rephrase the question. Maybe re-ask the question, or maybe it can get emailed and I can email her back, because I'm not following.
I've got to scroll back up to get the
Well, she's saying not a grant, it was a loan. So maybe just have her re-answer that. What do we have any others real quick while we're waiting on Carol to re-ask the question?
Marilyn, can we still apply for the FICA tax credit on Form 7200 for first quarter? The taxes were paid in full in April.
So the only credit that's available for first quarter is the employee retention credit. The answer is yes. If you qualify for the employee retention credit, know this, that if you got PPP funds, you are unable to get the employee retention credit at any time. So if you are in a set of circumstances where you got the PPP and you got the ERC, the IRS is going to have to tell us how we're going to be able to return that. But as it relates to those other tax credits that came out of the Families First Coronavirus Tax Relief Act, those credits are not available till April 1st or after, so you wouldn't be able to do anything for first quarter. So let me just say this. If you didn't get PPP, okay, and you qualify for ERC, the Employee Retention Credit, then absolutely you can do the 7,200. And my understanding is you can do it any time. So yeah, get the application in. Okay, what's Carol saying?
Got an EIDL loan in error and now want to apply for PPP. Do you have to deduct the EIDL loan off the PPP application if you got it by mistake?
Well, I don't think you would include it either way. And when you say EIDL, it's not the grant you said, it's just the traditional loan. So the loan doesn't have an impact, you bet, Marilyn. The loan doesn't have an impact on the PPP. And I know that we would say it has an impact on how you can spend and all that good stuff. But from the perspective of disclosing it, no. And as it relates to the effect, it doesn't. And if somebody needs PPP, then they should go after it. I saw something about Bud Fox from CSR. What did CSR say? If we're able to get to it.
Interesting, no Wall Street movie memorabilia in the background today. No thumbs down from the mermaid from Splash or Bud Fox. Coincidence?
I love it. I love it. Well, hey, so we went about 15 minutes longer than we had scheduled. Thank you so much for coming on. It looks like we got 87 thumbs up. I really appreciate that. We've got 157 of you on right now. We will be back on, and we'll be back on Friday at 4 o'clock. And then once we get past the July 15th deadline, then we'll circle back and do these back at 4 o'clock on Mondays. It's so great to get so many of these questions that weren't necessarily related to PPP. So I really appreciate that. And thanks for everybody that's come out. Make sure that you tune in Friday. We do have a number of videos that we hope to release this week. That is the plan. But anyway, so thanks for coming on. I'll just do it real quick, but just great to see you, Blair, and Card Shop, and Zoe Blue 144, and Karen, good to see you, Valerie and Stacy and CSR and Jean and Glenda and Carol and Andrew and Iced Out Every Day. I'm loving that one, Iced Out Every Day. And I don't know if with Flying Colors is still on with us, but keep us apprised. Let us know how your brother's doing, hopefully doing okay quick. And CSR, appreciate you, sir. And let's see, we got our Klunkle, and Carol and Fred. So thank you so much. I really appreciate all that. I am going to let Amanda wrap up with everybody and say our goodbye. So Marty Ray, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for being on, and much love, Kat and Stevie. And guess what? See if Cooper's here. So Cooper being a part, Cooper, if you don't know, hey Coop. So Cooper is my son. If you don't know, if you're one of the first tuning in, and he is going into his senior year of high school, and he asked to intern with me this summer. Oh, look at this. He's got his AC/DC shirt on. This guy's a cool guy right here. Look at this. So just say hi to everybody.
Hi, guys.
So Coop's here working late with me, so it makes it extra fun. He's working still in my office and actually prepping up some light tax returns. Yeah, and he likes it. It's kind of like putting together a puzzle. So know this. We might have CJ the CPA on our hands soon, and he'll be going live with everybody. So, all right, hey, I'm gonna let Amanda make sure she says goodbye to everybody, and thank you for tuning in. Much love to everybody. I really appreciate it. Duvall, good to see you, and Barbara and Tony, and Celine. Oh, and we got Cindy on. Good to see you, and Stevie and S. Phillips and Jason and Rob. Appreciate you all. You ready to take the mic?
I will take the mic and tell everybody.
And remind everybody about the awesome merch. All right, we'll see you all on Friday. Thank you so much. And thank you, Amanda.
But of course. All right, guys. Thank you again, as he said, for everybody to come on. We really appreciate all of you guys. Just a reminder, We do have JJ the CPA and the Amanda hats, and they are trucker hats, and they are pink. And then we have koozies, and we are limited on the amount of colors that we were sent. So if you want a colored one, you will have to email me and I will get it to you, or that way, or if you don't, you're gonna get a black one. So those are on jjthecpa.com. Underneath the merch tab, I'm tippy-toeing because I don't want to mess with the stand. So anyways, we really appreciate all of you guys tuning in. Make sure that you do tune in Thursday night at 9 p.m. for the reality show, and that you come back on Friday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time for happy hour and live questions and answers with JJ the CPA. So Card Shop Reality as always, and Jean McIntyre, we appreciate you guys. Blair and S. Phillips and Rob, and I have to move this over here so then I can see it better. Cinnamon Rush, thank you for coming on. Thank you, Marty. And Annette Benson, CPA. We always love it whenever other CPAs come on to hang out with us. Cindy, I know JJ said hi to you, but hello, I'm so glad that you're here. And Celine and Kate and Marty. Zoe is here, and Fred, we really appreciate you, and Blair and Iced Out Every Day, Carol, all of you guys, much love. We cannot tell you how much that we appreciate that you guys take your time out of your day to come here. And hi Dax, so good to see you. Yes, going back, JJ is already back in there. So we appreciate all of you guys more than you can imagine. And this has been a lot of fun, and we've built a big community, and we think of all of you guys as our family. And yeah, we just appreciate you guys. So we will see you again Thursday at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Come hang out with us. Our reality shows only last normally 20 to 25 minutes, so it's not a super long. So get you some takeout like With Flying Colors always does. Prop your feet up and just enjoy some entertaining minutes, about 20-25 minutes, as I said. So night, Nancy, appreciate you guys, and we will see you Thursday.